Welcome to another episode of Panakal, podcast for geeks, the show about good friends hanging out, talking about the things we all love. Sorry, we're a little late. Today's episode is going to be about the Book of Boba Fett, episodes 4 and 5. Wow, I just spaced on that again after I just said it before we went live. My guests today are Carey Drake, who you guys know from before. He's been missing for a little bit. Man's been trapped in a Sarlacc, probably. And Jason Engle. And Tom will not be joining us today, even though I boosted him everywhere. He had some family stuff to take care of. So let's just get into it. I was going to wait till we finished the whole season, but I realized that there's 2 more episodes left, not 1 more episode. So I think, no one's confirmed it yet, but I think the last episode is the David Filoni one. So I'm hopeful. I think we all kind of have the same feeling about this series right now. As far as not being
Bryce Dallas did
this last one
5, and then who did episode 4?
4 was I think 4 was the guy that did. I want to say either did it wasn't Fast and Furious. It was like the Mortal Kombat anime stuff that we're discussing. You remember that?
Oh,
wow, that's pedigree.
Oh,
right there. Wow.
Did
this last one
5, and then who did the fan film? You mean
he did? Like, I don't know. It was I thought we were discussing. He did like I think he did a fan film, and then from the fan film, he may have directed the Mortal Kombat movie or the Mortal Kombat animation.
Right. Okay,
I can't remember, but he did.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of that.
And I think I want to say before that he was doing commercials.
The last 2 episodes, then one of them is David Filoni, one of them is Robert Rodriguez.
Right.
Oh God.
I believe.
Things we all love. I got nothing personal against Robert Rodriguez except for the fact that I don't think I don't think Star Wars is his thing, man.
I'll say and just say out and out, I don't think movies are his thing at this point anymore either. I'll say and just say out and out, I don't think the man had like 2 decent movies at the start of his career, and it's just been a gradual slide into mediocrity.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't hate Sin City, though I expected what I got out of it, right? Like they're all on blue screens and there's no like sets at all, I think. So, and when they said why does my audio keep playing it? So when they said they were giving him the helm to direct it, I will say I'm thankful that he didn't do all 7 of these episodes, because that's what I originally thought was the deal. I like the fact that they're like, here, you do all these. I honestly, I've seen online how people are like Bryce Dallas Howard. That's her full name, right? Bryce Dallas Howard.
Mm-hmm.
Bryce Dallas
like
Howard.
How she should be doing like a whole series on her own. And at first I liked her episode from Mandalorian, and I thought, okay, that wasn't bad at all. I enjoyed that. I wasn't sure if she'd do a whole thing.
Her first season 1, I really didn't. I thought her first season 1 was like one of the best. Her second season episode was really good.
Yes.
And then this one was probably her strongest one yet. The episode 5 that she did.
Well, I think she's getting to like know the character better. So it's like, just give it to her.
Yeah, I mean, getting more comfortable with it.
Yeah, I mean, like we could start by breaking down episode 4 if you want first, because I feel like Carey's going to be the most vocal.
Let's eat our day.
I feel like we should let Carey go first, because he's just going to like throw some bombs in here.
I didn't get to vomit out all my.
Here's what we're going to do. We're going to let Carey vent about episodes 1, 2, and 3 first, real quick, because I think he has a lot to say. I wanted to get him on the first call for this, and he was busy, but
I couldn't do it. Yeah. My biggest, if I could boil it down to just one thing that I absolutely hate about this series, is that it's not so much in the last couple of episodes, but especially in those first 3 episodes, they keep trying to bring in little bits and pieces of our pop culture. Have you noticed that?
You're talking about like
I'm talking about with the Boston Dynamics dog in episode 1.
You didn't like those, I remember that.
I don't like the little dude that at the mayor's office.
Oh, okay, yeah. I know what you're talking about. Like the secretary or whoever he is. Yeah. I really wanted Fett to just shoot that guy when he was like, the mayor's busy. I wanted Fett to just be like, boom, next.
Yeah.
Because then I would have been like, that's the Fett we all know.
Yeah. So there's this is a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. But I keep seeing these little echoes of our world that just, I don't know about you guys, but it snatches me right out of the story.
I mean, hipsters are everywhere, man. Like,
I know.
They're like a plague.
Star Wars is escapism. I want to get away from the hipsters, man.
And no, I get it. And like, and the bikes, right? Like I think like the bikes really. If anything threw me in this whole series right now, it's those fucking bikes, and it's not because they're. I like the designs. I don't hate the way they look. They just
even belong in Star Wars, just not on Tatooine.
Correct.
It's really, really jarring.
Those are Coruscant bikes for sure.
Yeah, exactly. That's when I was talking to
for some reason for the 1980s, like.
Well, I was talking to some people.
Things happening here, and none of them make sense.
Well, they just they put them in there, and someone was saying, I can't remember who said this to me, but someone was saying it's like Coruscant bikes, like they're like. Those kids want to be like on a better planet, right? So they buy this stuff and they trick themselves out to actually live on they want to be part of Coruscant, which has got the cyberpunk aesthetic, right? So that's why they look like that, which I was like, okay, I can accept that. But then that fucking chase sequence happened and it was the slowest chase sequence I've ever seen in my life. I was just like, what the fuck is happening? So that got to me. So like I said this on the last time we talked about this. I don't hate the show because I feel like there's sprinklings of cool stuff in there.
Yeah, there's a lot to like.
Yeah, and then because like they're still doing a really good job with the world building. I think I just don't like the tank where he's in there healing over and over. I was happy in episode 4 where he came out of it and that droid was like, "You're completely healed." I'm like, good. I won't have to see this goddamn thing again until he gets injured.
I feel dumb that it took me pretty much up until that point to realize, like, oh, right, it's like stomach acid burns from Sarlacc. That's why he's... Yeah. And then, like, once he came out and, like, he looked healthy, I was like, oh, yeah, he did look really fucked up at the start. He looked like a raisin.
Yeah, he had, like, scars.
Out of the back.
Raisin.
I mean, I kept calling it a bantha tank, so if you feel dumb about that... And then I was like, why are these names so close together?
Maybe they make it from liquefied bantha. You don't know.
Maybe is it bantha piss in there? You don't know.
Exactly.
I do wish that there was better stakes for Boba Fett. Like, I still don't care about anything regarding like Boba Fett's problems and all that.
I was having this thought the other day when I'm gonna go a little bit to episode 5 because I had this random thought when the what she called the armor was like the Darksaber has to be won in combat. You can't just give it away, right? And I feel, and this is a weird random take, and I don't think this is gonna happen, but it'd be interesting if it did. Like Fett's already trying to rule technically on Tatooine, and I feel like there might be some form of combat between him and Mando for Fett to take over Mandalore, which would be a wild take and way off key for what's happening in the series, right? But I don't know what they're trying to build up to is my point. Like, what are they trying to do? He's not going to sit on that planet and rule. He's a bounty hunter. That's what he's good at, you know? Yeah. Like, he's not going to just sit there and be like, you guys go do the work and I'll just sit here and float in water, you know? But back to episode 4. Yeah, go ahead, Jason. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say it's a strange take for the character as an overall story arc. There's a lot of things about it that just don't really make a lot of sense to me.
Exactly.
The goals for the character don't really make sense. The fact that they had him live with the Sand People for a period of time, which was unspecified on the show, but which looked like the way it was shot, it looked like at least like a couple of weeks, and it should have been, timeline wise, it should have been years since the second Death Star was blown up and he was thrown into the Sarlacc pit.
Right.
Like getting out of the Sarlacc pit and spending a couple of weeks camping in the desert is just basically what the show made it look like. And it's not nearly the level of, sort of time passing that they should have tried to achieve there. But also the character just doesn't make a lot of sense because like he was a bounty hunter. He was a semi-bad guy most of the time. And now he's like, oh, I'm reformed. I lived with the Sand People for a couple of weeks. I feel like I've got a sense of family now. And
yeah, I think that's what they're trying to do.
Bring the world together and make it a better place and live in harmony and sing Kumbaya. It doesn't make any damn sense at all.
I mean, I get how
a compelling hero at the center of it all.
Well, they give you like these little hints of him wanting to be like family, because like you see him like running towards his dad's ship as his ship is taking off. They keep showing that. You see him kind of interacting with that child on with the Tuskens. And obviously, like you just said, he has family. So he feels, maybe he's just like, this is probably what I've been looking for. But we're all used to
trauma, man. Definitely.
Yeah.
But then also 2 decades of hunting and killing people for money. Like there's a gap in where the character was and where they're trying to keep him for the purpose of the story. And it just seems like a wasted opportunity, because it would have been this really, really compelling arc for the character to sort of, get to that place organically instead of just the writers shortcutting him there.
So Nelson has a good point. He said, I feel like they are trying to change the character I wanted Boba Fett, not the soft-hearted respect rule pushover.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I was going to say, so they had to change him because he basically got replaced by his doppelganger, Mandalorian. Like, the Mando is what Boba Fett
Yeah, Mando is what Fett used to be for us, yes.
Yeah.
Which you see in this last episode, right? The way he's just... the way he moves, the way he walks, the way he fights... what's that?
Everything you expected Fett to be. And now it's kind of like, okay, what do you do with Boba Fett then? Because this other guy has taken out his entire spot.
I mean, but when Fett shows up in The Mandalorian, he showed up a lot more badass than he is right now. And that's what is really irking me, right? Because like when he gets his armor back, he like just disseminates, is that the right word? Destroys those stormtroopers, right? Just eradicates them. And he's got his armor. Disseminates is not the right word, by the way.
Decimates.
Decimates, yes. I need more coffee. But then he also, he does more after that, like just when he's flying his ship to help them board, and he's helping them fight that battle. So I was hoping to get like that in between, like him and Mando on a little adventure, maybe. Like when they showed Mando in that episode, I was like, oh, okay, here's the Mando episode. But I was expecting Fett to be in there somewhere. Like that episode could have just been a opening to season 3 of Mando, and we could have just called it, right? Like Mando could have just shown up in that new ship and Fett parked the thing, done whatever he's going to do with Fett, and just taken off, and we would have been like, what the fuck was that? And then season 3 of Mando opens up and you get to see that episode where he builds the ship, and you'd have been like, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because now we're all like excited for Mando again, which is great. But everybody's like, Fett.
I don't want to see.
Breaks my heart because I love Fett, man. Like people don't care about Fett, and it just breaks me because he's such a cool character. And I'm like, what are you guys fucking doing?
Thing is though, like a lot of Boba Fett's, I guess like the stuff that kind of built him up to make him cool is like all ancillary stuff, like Dark Horse series, whatever. Like all the random stuff afterwards, like him in the movies. Literally just he's a neat action figure.
Hey man, he was cool at Empire. Come on.
I loved him in the Christmas special, honestly.
Yeah, I was going to say he had more to do in the Christmas special than he did in the movies.
Yeah.
I mean, they're giving us pieces of the Christmas special in the series, right? Like little hints. I mean, you got the rifle from Mando, and then when he gets that Rancor, he said, "I've ridden on bigger beasts," and you're like, if you've seen it, right? You're like, exactly what he's talking about. I don't know why you would keep I would not keep that Rancor as a pet, FYI. Like, if somebody showed up my doorstep and be like, here's our tribute to you, I'm like, yeah, you can take that back.
That's going to be the entirety of the last episode, just him riding a Rancor around. I mean,
I'm really hoping they're only hinting at it and he doesn't do it. Because I just feel like it's going to look so dumb.
They set it up. They
did. I know what they're doing. It's just annoying. It's like
Hasbro's got to make their action figure.
Oh, yeah, I didn't think about that. I mean, it's like when they were chasing around on the Vespas or whatever those bikes are called. I have no idea what those bikes are called, by the way. Are they called
stupid?
They're not. I was gonna say they're not swoops, and they're not.
They're not swoops because swoops are like the Harleys of Tatooine, right? You got the low back.
I'm sure
they're kind of a combo between the two, though.
There's got to be a weird word in there.
Wikipedia has a name for it.
Let's do a quick Google search.
Yeah, listen, Star Wars nerds, if anything, they've figured this out already. They already know what it is.
It's likely.
Where do you find? Yeah, I'm trying to remember the rest of.
So the rest of episode 4 is basically he goes and they're calling them Star Wars Vespas.
I know That's amazing.
I don't like that.
The only-
With their Aerotech Z4Zs, let me see what this is.
We were talking about right before we went live.
Oh, no, that's a speeder bike.
And I can only really recall the Sarlacc pit scene.
So
That's probably
episode
the most interesting thing for me for episode 4.
Oh yeah.
Well, episode 4 has all the stuff where you get to see the families meet, right? And he basically is telling them, look, if you're not going to help me with the pikes, just get out of my way. Which I was like, come on, dude. Literally disintegrate one of those dudes and just be like, if you're not with me, you're against me. Period.
I got to say that for me, the highlight of episode 4 was when everyone realized that they're dining on top of the Sarlacc trapdoor. I thought that
Rancor.
was
The Rancor, yeah.
a move.
The Rancor.
Yeah.
Yeah, where the claws come out.
Sarlacc. I meant Rancor.
I mean, you want to set up dinner on top of the Sarlacc. That's a gutsy move.
I meant Rancor, but I thought that was a baller move because that was a real show of power, and Boba Fett sat back just like a fucking mob boss, and I was like, that is cool. They need to do more of this.
Yeah, and because like when it attacks, he doesn't like him or Fennec both just sat there, right?
Yeah.
They're just like, we knew he's there. He's a family pet, man.
So basically telling them this entire time I've been sparing your lives.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean?
I didn't think about it that way, but yeah, that is. I just that Rancor is irking me. Like I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of that beast. I'm just.
Oh, you like the Rancor though, right?
I like the Rancor. I like if you read Darth Bane, how Bane rides the Rancor because it shows you that he can mind meld with them and can control them, right? And I liked how the witches of what are they called? Dathomir. Like they raise them and ride them. I don't like this weird. The first they say human, which is what boggles my mind too. The first human it imprints on.
Like,
I was like, it should have said any other word, right? The first thing they see is what it imprints on. The first alien, the first species. Any word I would have been like, that's cool. But human, I was like, bleh! What if a Gungan is standing in front of it? It's just gonna.
Nothing imprints on a Gungan.
That's really the key. They only respect.
I mean, a goddamn Rancor. Say it's Sarlacc.
Rancors, they're a little racist. I mean,
yeah. I also in that episode he destroys the Sarlacc, which I was hoping he would not destroy because that's like his. That's like that was like Jabba's like power move, right? Like this is your punishment. I'm not gonna put you in a dungeon or put you in a prison. I'm gonna throw you into the Sarlacc where you're gonna slowly die over thousands of years. And this dude goes in there with his ship. The whole time I was like, is he just gonna show up and just shoot the thing? Like, hey, what's up? Remember me? Because if you read Tales from Jabba's Palace, he shows up to the Sarlacc pit and they have like a mutual understanding. Like they talk. Do you remember that?
No.
If anyone who's read it, he kind of lets it live, basically, right? It's kind of like, all right, I survived you, I got away, and he lets it live. He doesn't like toss a thermal detonator or anything. And then this episode, they like kill the whole thing. I was just like, why? Like,
shooting fish in a barrel, man.
I was most confused by the choice to take your ship, which flies really well, and float it down right into the mouth of this alien squid thing that is going to grab you and try to eat you if you do that. I don't understand the point of that. It's like probing the giant, pit monster with your actual ship is just why? Especially if you're just gonna kill it anyway. Just blast.
I honestly don't think he expected to kill it, but also people are all over
sleepy, right? Like he was
I mean,
I don't know, maybe he's sleepy. I'll just fly in here with my ship and I'll fly down into the pit and just reach out and I'll roll down a window and I'll find my armor and I'll just, like, what was the fucking plan there, man? I don't understand.
Yeah, that's what bothers me. There's like no like I was like, okay, he's in his ship because he feels protected in his ship. But what was the plan?
Yeah.
Also, he couldn't reach the main switch that would have triggered the thermal detonator. Like Fennec's got to unbuckle herself to get to. I'm like, you ain't got switches that you can reach, dude. What's happening? Like it was just a whole bag of like.
Well, and she just
bad writing.
Switch to hit exactly too, and it's like she's never flown in this ship before. Like when they got in and they were taking off, he was like, "By the way, don't touch that button." Like that would have at least made some sense.
The red button, you never touch the red button.
You never touch the thermal detonator button. I mean, that's just common sense.
Yeah, I mean, it really bothers me that they kill that thing because it was like one of those staple creatures in the Star Wars universe. I think I'm sure there's other Sarlaccs out there.
I was gonna say there's probably more.
So Nelson said, "Does this stand as an example of what happens when treasured characters get a reboot? Maybe if you do it, but if you do it right, like a lot of you, like trying to think of a good example."
In theory, it can be done right, and that's what's important.
Yeah,
it could be done. I mean, this isn't doing it terribly. It's just it could be done better. Is really the key to what we're talking about.
That's exactly right. And Joe also said, crime lords love their animals. El Chapo had a zoo, Tiger King, tigers. John Wick has dog, and they explain this in Bad Batch. I don't remember. I'm a little behind on Bad Batch, so I don't remember where they explain this, but I get it. Like Jabba had the Rancor, and Fett now has a Rancor, but I don't know. I was hoping Fett would just have like one of those Tusken Raider dogs. What are they called? Desert dogs or whatever. You know what I'm talking about. Just like two of those on his side, right? Like sitting at the throne.
Yeah, or Womp Rat. Like, it doesn't matter, dude. You can get away with almost anything.
Also, we were talking about before we started, we were talking about how in that episode, after he gets his shit back, he like chases down those bikers and just like blast. I actually thought that was kind of cool. I think it was Andrew, you said it was like shooting fish in a barrel, or I forget which one of you guys said that. But I thought it was cool how he just like, I wanted him to intimidate them a little more though. Like fly past them, land in front of them. Like
quickly they wrap that up.
Yeah, it was just like, let's just clean this up and get it out of the way, right? Or at least like shoot one guy and then throw the rest of them into the Sarlacc or anything that would. But he was just like, I just want this done with, and I want to move on to the next one. It's like that's
and
weird.
It's so it's moved that act right there moved in the opposite direction that they seem to be trying to move the character into this guy with a more level head who's gracious and I hated that he just came in and just murdered everybody.
I think this is an interesting thing thinking about it now. Is okay, you compare and contrast it with like episode 5. Episode 5, I would say there's like 2 plot points in it. Jin figures out like, he gets cast out of his coven or whatever they call themselves.
Yeah.
And then he builds a ship. That's literally like the 2 main things that happen in that episode.
Yeah.
And it's way more compelling than like the 6 or 7 things that happen in episode 4. Episode 4, he visits the Sarlacc pit. He gets his shit back. He defeats the bikers. He talks with the crime bosses. He talks with Kirsten. There was something else that he did.
So yeah, when he talks to
there's like 5 or 6 like major plot points that happen in episode 4, and none of them are nearly as compelling as like the 2 very like base things that happen in episode 5. And you're like, cool, that's awesome.
Well, when they like sneak into the kitchen and they try to like go to to get his shit back, like that whole time I was like, this is whatever. They should be super sneaky. They're trained at this, right? But then when he like grabs that droid by the neck and he's like, I am Boba Fett. I'm like, why? Like, dude. Like,
I did find that really was a hilarious scene.
I mean, I chalked it up to like and this is again me and with my own headcanon to like feel better about Fett, but it's like I was like, he's saying that over and over to people because he needs to confirm in his own head who he is, because he's been like jacked up for, at that point he's not healed yet, right? He's literally out of the Sarlacc, living with the Tuskens, trying to get his shit back together. So I think
that's one of the major weaknesses of this series is that there's too much headcanon. They're not providing enough of the narrative. We're having to say, but it's okay to do that because this other thing, and it's I don't like that we're having to fill in the gaps.
Right. And that's the problem. Like as fans, we're like, what if it meant this? What if it meant that? It's like just give us what know what we want.
I watched one of those breakdowns where they talked about how much time that he actually spent with the Tusken Raiders.
Sure.
And the way they had it broken down is it was like 5 years.
But yeah, because this is happening 5 years after Return.
We have no way of knowing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. how
have
many
no
plot
way of
arcs
knowing
were
how
in there?
long he spent
We
there.
didn't-
You just,
Like maybe he married a Tuscan girl and they settled down, and I mean it didn't work out. I mean there's 5-year period is a long time. They just
Yeah.
didn't really fill in a lot.
yeah.
I mean, are you suggesting
he
that the
killed
little
Big
boy was
Papa
his?
Wow.
And he's dead now? Plot thickens. So also, they never showed that female Tuscan. Everyone was like, she kind of looked like she was on the pile. I'm like, no, they never showed her. They showed the chief dude dead, like kind of reaching for his chief staff, whatever you want to call that, his mace. But they never show the woman, the female Tuscan that trained him. So I'm curious. I feel like we're okay. The other thing is, if he's healed from that tank, we're probably not going to get any more flashbacks unless he has nightmares when he sleeps. Which
I really hope they don't do any more flashbacks. I feel like
they
we're
owe us.
caught
I
up.
think they're going to give us one more if that character is still alive. They're gonna, or she's just going to show up.
Yeah, I can see that where it's like because he's trying to rally people to attack the Pike Syndicate. I can see her just like coming out of the blue and be like, "Oh yeah, you're still alive. Okay, you want to help me out?"
Yeah.
That would be cool.
I want
She
to
shows
see.
up leading all the tribes of sand people. Like,
Oh, that would be cool. I would like
that's not-
the other bounty. We were talking. That's not going to happen. Yeah, it's too much. Too much. I would like to see the other bounty hunter. We discussed this in the last one. I would like to see the other bounty hunters show up.
Yeah.
Maybe he's like, I got money. You work for me. Let's go. Like boss.
Yeah, I'm surprised they haven't yet. I mean, and he is talking about how he needs muscle, so this is the perfect time for them to do it. If they introduce some of the other bounty hunters into episode 6, that makes a lot of sense. I am surprised that they didn't build the series kind of around that, considering that that's his main background story in the Star Wars universe. And those are the characters that have traditionally been associated with him directly more than anyone else. It would have made a lot of sense, but instead they went a different way. But hopefully episode 6 they decide to get some of those in there.
I'm looking through my notes on. So I did. So when I did a deep dive on episode 5 for the Armorer, like somebody had this very interesting take on like she is part of their coven was probably part of Death Watch, and they kind of tell you that. Is that what they're called? Death Watch, right? With Vizsla. What's his first name?
I have no idea. It's something.
He has the Darksaber in Clone Wars, and then Darth Maul defeats him and takes it from him. Which that faction was Death Watch, right? So
yeah, I think I heard about that.
So they suggest that this coven was part of that. And then if you see, so this is a deep dive on the guy who's doing this article. I can't remember where it was. But he talks about how her helmet has the spikes coming out of it, kind of representing Maul. And she talks about Bo-Katan as if she knows Bo-Katan's the one that kiboshed that whole situation for them. But she does hand the Darksaber back to him, and she does not try to take it from him. So there's like a level of respect she has for Din, I guess. Because she should have let him stab the big dude, though. He had the drop on him. And
the big dude was about to kill Mando, and she didn't say anything then. Like, he was about to chop him in half, and she was like, I'm going to let this happen. But as soon as the thing was turned around, she's like, oh, no, hold on.
Yeah, she's like, I kind of need that guy to lift things down here in our secret clubhouse.
Right.
I get the feeling that they're setting up something with those guys that they're not all that they have shown us there, because they're like the shit she said about Bo-Katan and making it sound like she was responsible for the decimation or dissemination of the of Mandalore or the whatever it was, the city of the moon or whatever ended up getting destroyed.
Right.
With that,
they survived. They survived because they were banned to the moon, basically.
Right.
So what do they call it? The Night of the Thousand Screams, Thousand Tears, Night of Thousand Tears.
Yeah.
They survived because they were off planet, whereas anyone on Mandalore was just like eradicated.
But it feels like they're setting up some beef between these different factions, Mandalorians, and I'm hoping that that's going to pay off, whether in this series or season 3 of Mando. That I kind of smell something coming out of that.
That'd be kind of nice too, actually, to see a major Star Wars narrative that continues forward for these shows anyway, that doesn't just involve like Jedi or Sith at one end or the other of it, but it involves a central conflict of just different Mandalorian clans. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
I'm all for it. It's taking the strengths of these shows, which is sort of taking the fringe lore of Star Wars and putting it front and center and making the most of those. I like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just trying to. It's so hard to like. The one big thing that's bugging me is like there's just no way to be like this is the next. It's leaving. We're all confused, right? We're all like, what the fuck is happening? Like, what's the next thing? And I apologize if I think my goddaughter might be watching. I'm dropping F-bombs like there's no tomorrow, but. I'm trying not. Thanks, Jason.
Sorry.
It's
terrible.
fine. It's fine. Welcome to the show, Macy, if you're watching. But like, it's like, like when you watch Mando season 1, you kind of had an idea of where it was going to go. He's got to get this little baby from point A to point B. And then you watch Mando season 2, and you knew he had to go find, like they tell him who to find. You got to find this Jedi. You got to do this thing. So there's always like a mission, right? And then Fett, it's just like, for the base idea is he wants to take over as a crime lord. And you're like, okay, let's see what he does to get there. But then they put in all these little subplots. And then that flashback that is pointless, but also maybe not 100% pointless because it's kind of trying to tell you what he's been through. But I was like, I'm so confused. And then they give us this Mando episode where I'm just like, okay, this whole episode geared up to him returning to Tatooine to build a ship just so Fennec can show up and be like, hey, man, we kind of need your help over here. Which they could have like just called it in, right? Hey, I don't know where you are right now. Oh, you're on a weird ring world planet that's not quite a ring world, but half a ring. How's that floating in space? I don't know. And we need your help, right? And I was just like, I did think it was interesting, though, on a quick random thought, that they talk about how the Darksaber has to be one because it's like heavy for him. Like you have to like, it's kind of like an Excalibur, right? Like it won't just let you wield it, or like a Sword of Omens.
Yeah, I thought that was intriguing.
I don't remember that being in the lore, but
it's new lore.
It's new lore, and Filoni is one of the producers, so I'm cool. He was probably like, yeah, it's cool.
I was trying to figure out like, so it's like, is it less of a, not really like a you're worthy kind of thing? It's like you have to be in the right headspace to wield it.
Well, I think you have to.
They're inferring it.
I think the fact that they say you have to win it by combat is part of being worthy to wield it, right? Like, and that suggests that what's his name, Moff Gideon, did he defeat Bo-Katan to take that from her? Because she. If you watch Rebels, what's her name? Sabine has it, gives it to Bo-Katan. She gives it to her. She doesn't fight for it. Then Bo-Katan has it for X, and then somehow Moff Gideon has it. So I'm assuming he defeated her and took it from her. And he wields it like it's nothing.
I don't think it's her he would have to defeat because it didn't really belong to her.
Well, I was also going to say, like, Armor didn't. She I think she was hammering that home in terms of like kind of like a more like, oh, the other Mandalorians, they fucked up, they gave it away or whatever, they didn't adhere by the old rules, which is like you have to win it by combat. But she mentioned more like, you have to, you're trying to fight the sword to wield it,
right?
And you have to let it be an extension of you and like it's kind of like the Jedi mumbo jumbo kind of thing where it's like, you have to let it be an extension of you. Don't have it be treated as like a separate object of you. That's why it's so heavy, and that's why it's so difficult for you to wield it.
So Joe said they said it was a curse if you didn't win it through combat. Okay, I don't remember that part.
Yeah. Well, that's why she said that why Mandalorian fell, because I guess who had it last? I guess like Bo-Katan's family.
Right.
Gave it away or like just inherited it, and that's what caused Mandalore to fall. At least that's what they were saying. This crazy death cult that we watch that we follow.
I mean, you don't 100% know if they're part of Death. We're all assuming they're part of Death Watch.
They're definitely some kind of extremists.
They're definitely some kind of extremists, yes, because they got that weird like you can't remove your helmet rule and. I like how she was like, have you removed your helmet? And he just stood there. awkward. You know, like
I guess
he stood there for a long minute, right? Like he's like, I don't really know what to say here, man. You know.
My biggest complaint about this episode is the fact it's not in a Mandalorian season; it's in Boba Fett, which means you got to watch this episode. Yeah, because like a lot of the things that are covered in this, like they're not going to really retread it for a Mandalorian season.
Yeah, I'm still confused. I'm so confused by why they did like I said, the whole time I was watching that episode, I was like, at what point does Fett come into play here? And then when you realize it's just an all Mando episode, you're like, this makes no like. I'd like to get into the headspace of Bryce and just be like, why? Like, why didn't you feel the need to put Fett in here somewhere?
Remember, she directed it.
Oh yeah, or the writers then, right? Just to be like, why? Why didn't you feel the need not to put him in here?
Yeah, more whoever, like Dave Filoni and I think Rodriguez is spearheading this. So
it's just confusing. It's like obviously it's done now, so there's nothing we can do about it other than figure out why. Like that totally should have just been like episode 1, season 3. It would have been fine. It would have worked out just great. Because then he ends it by saying, "I got to go see a kid real quick" or something, and you're like, oh man, you're in for a rude awakening. Like, when does the Jedi Temple get burned? Is it around this time, or is it, because it's later? This is 5 years after Return, so it's much later. Like Force Awakens is much later, right?
Mark Hamill was like a good 40 years old or whatever when that temple fell.
Yeah. So there's at least another 20 years before that happens.
Yeah, versus like the 20, 30 something years right now.
Okay. So there's a little bit of time. Okay. So he doesn't have to completely
from in Mando when we saw Luke Skywalker at the end there, the guy who was the body double for that who they faked out his face. He's one of the X-Wing pilots in episode 5.
Oh, is he the other one?
The other one, yeah.
I'm surprised that the older X-Wing pilot didn't recognize Mando, because like they went on that whole adventure on that ice planet. Basically, they were hunting him down, and then they saved him. Did he?
Like, your voice sounds familiar. Yeah. I'm pretty sure you're this one guy. And he was like, no, I'm not. No, I'm pretty sure you are. Can you should answer some questions. And he's just like,
I do like how he boosted away.
I gotta say that ship that was pretty badass, and the breakdown that I like to watch of these things. He said it was kind of funny that they took this old stuff from the prequels, and they're just sort of reskinning it and making it cooler and showing it. He said is sort of indicative of what Filoni is doing with Star Wars as a whole. He's digging up all this old stuff and
he loves episode 1.
Shiny, you can tell, and he makes it cool.
I mean, what I liked about the building of the ship was it felt like when you like I used to work on cars all the time when I was younger with my friends, right? And it had that cool, like, just when he's like walking by and touching the back of it and stuff, I'm like, it's like building a vehicle, right? It's like that love of, and then he knows all the shit about the parts, and he has them get him like the specific. You saw the engine, I'm like, that thing's a Hemi, like drop it in, like let's go. I will admit, I didn't expect that to happen when he pressed the button. I thought it was like a turbo, like an exhaust. He would like fly off and then hit it and then just go a little quicker, like nitro. But he was in a stop position, hits that trigger and just gone. I was just like, that's cool.
Well, because what's her face, the Amy Sedaris character says he doesn't need a docking ring,
right?
Because she whatever she did to it made it so it didn't need that.
She's like the tuner junkie in like the Fast and Furious, right? Like, drop 3 tanks of Nas in here for you, man. Let's go.
I always figured that was like a point out to like the the Jedi Starfighters in episode 2 and 3. Like they needed a docking ring to be able to jump to light speed because they were a smaller ship or whatever. But the Naboo Starfighters, I do remember, like even in episode 1, they don't need that to jump to hyperspace at all.
Okay.
It's like equal to like an X-wing or whatever. Like an X-wing doesn't need a docking ring to jump up to light speed.
But they definitely made it faster, right? Like it wasn't like I don't remember them being that quick.
Not nearly that fast.
I wasn't, I like the design of those ships when I saw them in episode 1, but they weren't like my favorite ships. But having rebooted it, I was like, this isn't that bad to look at, maybe because the
yellow paint, man.
Yeah, it's all like yellow paint's gone.
Yeah, it looks like Mando's armor, and it's pretty badass.
Yeah. So Joe looked up the quote from the episode. It said, "Falls into the hands of the underserving, it will be a curse on their nation." That's for the Darksaber, by the way. I also liked, a lot of people so Filoni loves explaining the beauty of like episode 1 to like episode 3 to like into the new stuff, right? Because people hate episode 1, because a lot of it isn't that good. But I did like how they show him racing through like over Tatooine and then through Beggar's Canyon.
That was awesome.
I laughed about that because I was like, oh, Beggar's Canyon, as seen in Star Wars Rebel Assault and Star Wars Rogue Squadron and all these other video games that I've played that I've had to fly through Beggar's Canyon for.
I mean, it's like the main part of pod racing.
1.
Yeah, it's main part of racing in episode 1. I was like, that's cool. You know, I like how
at some point, but it never happened.
Yeah, don't touch any buttons. Oh, this one, you know, like he says something else, like he called her a wizard, which I think is what Anakin calls the Jedi, or somebody calls them Jedi wizards.
Annie's friend that was that, oh, Annie, this is so wizard, or something like that.
Yeah. So like I was trying to also look up, like he says a couple he says Dank Farrik again, which I think is great because it's kind of like this dude consistently swears on the series. But then he said something like, this is as fast as I can't remember now.
The horse things from one of the sequels. Is
that what it was?
Yeah.
Because I was like, what's that one mean? You know, like, I don't know. I didn't, like, whatever, man. I think it's a cool design. I'm waiting for Bandai to put out a ship bar racing to buy it. oh, that's what I my notes I put down BD1. If you guys have played, what's that Star Wars game?
Oh, is that what he's from Fallen
Order? Yeah, it's that little robot that he carries around on his shoulder.
Oh, right.
Oh.
That's where I get that thing from.
Dude, it took me a minute. I was staring at that thing. It reminded me of the old school Nintendo robot, remember? And I was like, what is that? Why haven't I? I can't. And then I had to look it up, obviously. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to remember that.
Well, did you notice too the robot when he's getting on the shuttle in episode 5 and he's putting his gear in the crate? That's the robot from Star Wars.
I mentioned I mentioned that to a friend of mine. I was like, that's the Star Tours ride.
Yeah,
droid.
So I've never been there, so I wouldn't know that robot.
Paul Rubens.
Well, he's not even there anymore. They have C-3PO do all the sort of.
That was so, Alan. That was the droid that before Disney revamped the whole MGM area for Star Wars thing, that was the droid that used to pilot like the cruiser dealio thing that's at Star Tours. And he was voiced by Pee Wee Herman. And I would have lost my shit.
Yeah,
I would have lost my shit if that was Pee Wee Herman voicing it, but it wasn't, sadly.
I was listening so hard, hoping it was him.
So I forgot about that scene until you just brought it up, Jason. That bothered me so much that he left his weapons in that crate.
And the Darksaber is like this,
and the Darksaber,
the entire galaxy. But gosh, I hope the TSA is just full of really nice, honest people today. And I'm just going to leave this here. Like, he didn't bother rescheduling his shuttle, getting like some sort of secure vault to put it in. No, he's just like, I'm going to trust that all goes according to plan, and this will be fine.
I feel like so the way I chopped that up is part of it. I chopped it up to it kind of showing how little he cares. How little he cares about that Darksaber. Like, how little he's just like, I don't really want this thing. Nobody will take it from me, you know.
Yeah.
But then I was like, but he didn't want to give it to the other dude, right? He wasn't going to let him win it from him. So I think he has this like he wants someone specific or important to get it, but he doesn't want to give it to I can't remember that Mando's name, but the gunner, you know, the big dude who can't fight, by the way.
Well, now, hold on a second. Did you notice how when he grabbed the Darksaber, it was even heavier for him?
Right.
Yeah.
He was really struggling with it. I thought I kind of like that.
That guy did like that classic villain mistake where he's like, aha, I got it. And your enemy is still there, still alive, not dead. So you can just be like, nah, you know, like, I'm just like, what are you doing? You know? And then that's how Mando got the drop on him, basically, with the vibro blade or whatever it's called, right? Dude, he got stabbed like 8 times. So it's like, wow, if I got stabbed that many times, I'd be like, we're good, man. you know,
that reminds me, I liked the touch of him like accidentally singeing his leg when he first whipped out the Darksaber. Because like I don't think we've ever seen anyone self-inflict an injury on themselves using a lightsaber or anything like that.
I mean, when I saw that, go ahead,
really
Jason. I'm sorry.
easy to do, but the problem is, they don't want to show people like chopping hands off and stuff. Like, oh
Yeah.
damn, oh man, I should have been.
That's why I'm surprised. Like, he just tacked it against his thigh real gently, and that was enough to be like, oh Jesus, you have like a third-degree burn.
Well, I assume it was because he doesn't know how to wield a lightsaber at first, and then later when they say because it's got weight, then I was like, because he scrapes it on the floor in that scene too, and I thought, oh, he's just like being cool with it, right? Like, I'm gonna kill you, like. But then, like, when they tell you it's heavy later, you're like, oh, okay, that gives it a whole different spin, right? Yeah. Like, he definitely is not. But, yeah, I don't know. That whole sequence where he throws all his weapons in there and he just dumps all his little tiny rockets out. I'm like, they wouldn't have noticed the missiles, dude. Like, they're so tiny. Like, I was just like, what are you doing? Like, don't you have, like, hidden compartments on your armor or something? But, I don't know. He obviously got it all. Yeah, got it. And he got it all back, so I was just like, oh, okay, well, I guess they're not going to stress us out any further with this.
Yeah, when that crate opened up again, like, we were scanning to be like, okay, is there anything missing or whatever.
I was like, count all the rockets, make sure you have whatever, 16 of those.
So what was the point of that? Why did they show us that he had to get rid of the weapons and then he just got them all back?
Just because he doesn't have a private starship. He has to slum it with everyone else on the space bus.
Commercial.
I mean, was it to show...
on screen.
Was it to humble him? Like, I don't get it. Was it to humble him?
It didn't make a lot of sense to me, honestly. There's just no point to it.
Yeah, it was a narrative beat that just didn't belong.
I think it was supposed to be, probably it was intended as a joke, right? Because he's covering weapons, and they figured him standing there, like, unloading weapons for 5 minutes would be kind of funny, or, sort of silly, I guess. But it just didn't come off that way. It was like, okay, so, he put his 14 guns in the crate and then he left. Cool.
And that's exactly what I'm talking about, man. Taking stuff from our world and putting it into the Star Wars universe. Right. My first time watching it, as soon as that came up, I was like, oh, they're doing it again. Now he's on Delta.
I mean, like, I talked to Carey when the first couple episodes came out, and he was like in such a mood. I was just like, this man is angrier than I am about this. Like, that's why I was trying to get him on the first one, because I'm like, oh, this guy's gonna have a lot to say.
Yeah, I jokingly said, in my head, that would have been a better show. Sorry.
It's all good. I mean, I jokingly said you were gonna rant today, and you haven't really gone on a rant yet. But as I feel like also as a Star Wars fan, I'm just accepting the fact that I'm getting some Star Wars in that universe. Mm-hmm. I get to live in that universe, even if it is for a brief 40 minutes of what the hell is happening.
It's not perfect, but it's still better than the prequels, which didn't really know what Star Wars was about. At least this is trying, even if it's not really built on a solid foundation. So
yeah, but I will say I kind of like the retroactive light on the prequels that Filoni's given it, so that I'm like, okay, now I understand the prequels a little bit better, and but of course I'm bragging about.
I don't think anyone ever knocked like the designs or like the details within the prequels. It was just always the story, because the story's terrible.
Joe has a good point about him putting the stuff in the crate, but he said, I think the scene is supposed to highlight the mundane reality of the universe. Same for Boba Fett's visit to the mayor's office.
That's not why we watch Star Wars, though.
Right. That weird stuff exists. I don't need to see it actually. I don't need him to step through the machine that scans him. You went off like a blue light special.
Where he registers his new starfighter.
I like how he hasn't registered any of his ships.
Like Beetlejuice sitting there with a number,
Yeah.
With the other people waiting around. Like, he meets the Jawa that the engineer used to date. I mean, there's...
Hurry.
Yeah, I did like how she speaks to them in their language.
That was kind of cool.
I was like, it's a weird thing to do, but I was like, she does it so well, because she's funny. She's a comedian, right? So I think her playing that role I think is perfect. Whatchamacallit? I had a random thought. So Joe's saying that's the joke. The prequels are not so bad, especially slapped up against comparison to the Book of Boba Fett. Oh, that's what Nelson
said.
said.
Prequels are still bad. I'm not gonna give it excuses. I'm just saying, like, the designs were never the thing that people ragged on it about. Those were always strong because they were like consistent, like all other Star Wars stuff. But the story in prequels is terrible.
I mean, the stories to the prequel were like nice with it. That's because the prequels, he had the idea for the prequels as he was writing the original series, right? And then he just never like embellished on it, right? Like Lucas was never
I still call bullshit on that. Like he's built a lot of mythology on the back of his thing, and I doubt any of that was written out or even like thought of beyond like this general thing was happening. Like it was like this before everything went to shit. And
I feel like if I ever have an opportunity in my life to have dinner with George Lucas, I'm gonna invite Andrew to that dinner. Just to be like, go ahead, tell him what you said to me.
Yeah.
I call bullshit on that.
Well, I mean, I agree with him because he said the same kind of, when they released the special editions of the original trilogy back in the late 90s, he said the same kind of, this is always what I meant to do. No, it wasn't.
No, I mean, that's because, like, when he talks about episodes 1, 2, and 3, he's like, oh, I already had this idea. And the thing that pisses me off about that statement is, sure, maybe you didn't have the idea. But if you did, why didn't you clean it up? Like, why didn't you obviously have a team of writers. Like, all this other stuff came out in the Star Wars universe before episode 1. So, like, why not, like, say, oh, I got this thing I wrote. It's probably not that good. Like, you want to clean it up? Like...
That's not his mentality, though. He's always been a person that resents... I think he's a person that resents the fact that he had to have other people salvage his stuff.
Sure.
And as he become more and more like as he become more and more powerful all the time, he's had more yes men, like less people kind of like guard him on the rails or whatever. His work has gotten progressively worse over the time.
I mean, he's working on another Indiana Jones, I heard.
They say that.
Well, Carey's face says it all.
They're all like 80 years old at this point, though, so I don't expect it.
I don't know that. Well, Indiana Jones is. I think it's done filming. George, I don't know that he's actually involved with it though.
He's just like a producer on it.
This time either. I don't think it's a different director, and I think George
is Spielberg doing it, or
I mean, Spielberg did some of the original ones, right? I think the first
he did all of them.
Spielberg did all of them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
They made it originally.
Joe said no. Nelson had a good point too. Like he says, Lucas was a bad director. And he just makes things up as he goes along. He does make things up as he goes along. I think Lucas is actually not a bad writer. He's just not a very good director.
He's a world builder.
He's a world builder, which is fine. He's got, I mean, all the ideas he's coming up with is like, this is cool stuff.
And to that point, like there is a way to do that where you make things up as you go along, and then you just kind of like Marvel movies do that more or less. Like they don't like anyone that says like, oh, it's all planned out. It's not all planned out. A lot of the stuff, what they do is they will grab something that was like thrown in as a weird Easter egg in a past movie, and they're like, "Oh, let's give that some like levity now." And then to you though, like in the current time, it seems like, "Oh, it's all planned out." It's like, no, we just saw this cool thing. We're going to use it now for this thing. That's an example of like the good way to do that. The bad way is just like just chucking it out and be like, "Okay, here's this, here's this, here's this," which is kind of like what Lucas did sort of here and there. Like he just had ideas that he spat out, but like didn't really like do much to evolve it, or it's like tonally weird, kind of like actually this was something that someone brought up in an article not too long ago after the whole Tusken episode with Boba Fett that showed like a lot of the Tusken background. It's like, seeing that makes Anakin's whole thing where he commits genocide on the Tusken family all those stranger. And it makes Padme seem even worse because already it's not good ground for someone to be like, oh, I killed this whole like tribe. And she's still like, oh, like he just had a this is total like abusive like kind of thing where it's like, oh no, he just had a moment where he went off. Like he's still a good guy. It's like, no.
She's just like standing there like she's like, are we doing this thing or what? What's going on here? Like,
yeah, like she
don't really care to hear about the sand.
She was still willing to go with him after that. It's like, oh, now in retrospect, yeah, this is really, really bad. To be frank, like, yeah, he committed genocide, like out and out genocide.
I mean, I think was his way of saying this dude's falling deeper and deeper to the dark side of things, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
but if you watch like Clone Wars, it helps
in his heavy-handed way it was. But yeah, it was just an interesting thing I saw, like an article brought up where it's like, in retrospect now that we've seen even more of the Tusken Raiders and they're given more identity instead of just being like random desert people.
Well, that's the thing.
It makes that scene even worse because you're like, oh Jesus Christ, he possibly wiped out like the one tribe that had that particular culture.
Sure.
And influence and stuff, and like now that whole tribe is gone.
Well, I mean, so Nelson has a point. Anakin was way darker than he was directed to be played because and Filoni, I think, fixed a lot of this if you watch Clone Wars, because you can see how he is slowly like falling to the dark side. In the movies, it's harder to see because Lucas is a horrible director. So he's not really like telling you that story. Like, he wrote the idea, right? I got this idea. Anakin's going to get darker and darker and then eventually become Vader. Yeah. Cool. There's your treatment plan. Now, how are you going to embellish on that, right? Which is what he doesn't do. So if you watch Clone Wars, like, Filoni does a pretty decent job of showing you how Anakin's going through like one BS thing after another BS thing. And after a while, he's just like, cool, I'm just going to go over here and kill all these people. Then I'm going to go kill a bunch of younglings. And then I'm going to take over and become the Dark Lord of the Sith. And you guys did this to me. Like...
Oh, like, but it totally makes sense because he was super frustrated at the time. Like,
yeah,
it's like it was written by someone who has no concept of how to create, an emotional story arc that is believable in any way.
Well,
I
was
like
gonna
Saturday
say...
morning cartoon level of emotional nuance.
Like, if you don't watch the Clone Wars and you watch just that movie, you're like, wow, this dude flipped the script really fast.
Yeah.
Well, like, buddy, you mad about sand? Relax, bro. It's everywhere. You live here.
Yeah. Lucas has definitely gone on record as saying like he is not a human director. He prefers not to really direct his actors. He thinks about effects and like how does a shot look. That's pretty much where his bread and butter.
I mean, that sounds.
He's out and out said like I am not a people director. Like I don't like to direct people. I kind of treat them as like mannequins that go.
I mean, just remove the word people, and that statement makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
I'm gonna keep ragging on him as a director because I think he's a good writer. I just don't think he's a good director, man. Episodes 1, 2, and 3 are all directed by him, and they're all just like very static to watch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I do think though that that's probably a good contrast for like especially the Boba Fett thing. Is like I kind of like I'm not like super crazy about a lot of the like the trappings of the world. Like those are always interesting, but if you're just giving me that and only that, I really don't care about it. Like there's been a lot of episodes of Boba Fett where I don't care. Like you're not giving me enough to be vested in with the people. So all this other ancillary stuff like does not do anything for me. Whereas a decent episode of Mandalorian or whatever, where you feel like you're into the stakes, you want to see how he gets out of this or whatever. Mm-hmm. Then that extra stuff gets thrown. You're like, cool, I'm along for this ride. I like to see this.
I mean, I think the thing the reason we were so okay with only 2 things happening in that episode with Mando was because we had this buildup of that character, like you were saying, right? Like, and we're not getting that buildup. We kind of got a little bit of a ramp up with Fett in Mando season 2, and we're not getting that in this one. Like, if he had just come in guns blazing just a little bit, like, we would have been like, okay. But he keeps coming in trying to be, I don't know, the cool uncle. I don't know what he's trying to do, but like, it's like trying to be nice, and you're like, you're not a nice. Maybe you are nice. Maybe you're just damaged, right? Because you grew up with no father. He was like, if you watch Clone Wars, and you'll see like this dude was like in like I guess you would call it an orphanage, right? Like he's raised randomly by all sorts of different types of individuals. So they're not showing that,
I was going to say, there's a scene in episode 4 that I just remembered that I think would have done better if it was at like the start of the whole season. I think it would, and it's him after he rescued Fennec, and he's talking about like, I'm quitting the bounty hunting business. It's a shit job. It's time we get our cut of the pay. Like we should be the ones that get the cut of the pay.
Right.
Which should have given me that in episode 1, because then I would have been like, okay, cool. I totally understand where Boba Fett's coming on it. He is underpaid, overworked, and he's sick of it.
Yeah, and just sort of piggyback on that, the change to his character, I think, took place over the however long he spent with the Tuscans. I feel like we haven't gotten that story. We're having to, headcanon all that, because I think that is really why he went from being Boba Fett, the badass who just kill you as soon as look at you, to this guy that would hire you and kill you.
Even that, like, again, like that whole scene that he talks with Fennec about it, like if you give him that right at the beginning, that makes everything everything of his actions like make a lot more sense from that perspective, where it's like he's just tired of doing the job that he's been doing, and being stuck in the Sarlacc pit was like the final straw, where it's like, holy shit, I'm so tired of doing this job. I don't want to do this job anymore.
And by the way, by way of rant, I hated the interior of the Sarlacc. It looked like a high school play production to me.
Well, have you seen like everyone's posting photos of it, like how it looks? It looks like a weird turnip. It's got like little feet, and then it's got like the stomach.
Is it the one from Terrell Witchelach's Guide to Star Wars?
I mean, I don't know who drew it, but they were like showing that to show you that like that essentially what he's in is like the stomach, right? So you're getting that weird, like, I get what you're saying, though. It's not like the best production quality. They're just like, put some curtains in and wave them. So they look like guts.
It's some big rubber guts hanging down. And it looked like he could just stand up and walk around in there. He didn't look, it should have been disorienting.
Yeah, I think that's what it's from, Andrew.
It might be from this book. And let me find the exact guy. Let's see. Swamp Rats.
So Joe made a comment, says, I think that's the significance of Ahsoka and Clone Wars. Both. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
I remember when I saw this.
I like how that photo's just showing like lemmings just falling in. Like, this way, boys. I know the way down, like.
Yeah, I remember seeing this, like, when did I pick up this book? When I was like 18 or something. And I saw this, I was like, holy shit, that's what it looks like? That's kind of lame.
I always envisioned it like just like a Venus flytrap style plant.
Yeah.
So then when I saw that, I was like, it's literally a thing that's buried itself in the sand, and it's just like, I guess this is where I'm living the rest of my life, But Joe, so I was saying, Joe had a point where he said that's the significance of Ahsoka and Clone Wars. Her and Anakin face the same bureaucratic situations and reacted differently. But then he also said they both ended up. So he said they both end up not being Jedi, which is not true. Anakin was a Jedi Knight. He just wasn't a Jedi Master. Joe. Mm-hmm. I'm calling you out. Get out of here, Joe. Like, no, I'm kidding. But yeah, like, I get it. Like, but you got to keep in mind what I was saying before. Anakin was being like pushed away. He was like being rejected by the people he wanted to be accepted by, and the final straw was them saying, we're not going to make you a Jedi Master. And he was literally probably the strongest one in that room at that time, right? So he's just like, nah, younglings, like, right. I don't know. Like,
listen, when you do genocide at that point, like, you might as well just, what are you going to do? You can't walk back from that. Killing kids is like a step below genocide at that point. You're like, oh, okay, that's like nothing for me.
Yeah. So, why were we talking about? So Carey brought up the Sarlacc designs. Yeah, I wanted more from the Sarlacc. I wanted less of him killing it. Like, I wanted him to like get away from it and survive it and be like, well, we're not doing that twice. I also thought it was weird that he couldn't remember that the Jawas rifle butted him and took his armor. Like, he's over there. Like, I think it's over here. That he's looking for his armor in the Sarlacc. He's not there for like a vendetta. And then after he kills it,
it does become a vendetta.
It's a vendetta. The dude kills him, the Sarlacc, and then he's just like, oh, it's full of acid that I really shouldn't go into. But here, tie a rope to my ship. I got to go in there and look for my armor. Like, I was like, at what point is his brain going to trigger that the Jawas took it? Like, I don't understand. He seems to have flashbacks of everything else. That must have been a really good. That Java was strong when he hit him. You're not going to remember my face at all. You know, like
you got fucking amnesia. Like, it's like they rewrote that one element after they realized they wanted a scene with the Sarlacc pit in there just to have it.
I'm waiting for them to explain that, like where he's gonna be like, wait a minute, like his mind just like races back to laying in the desert, and then maybe he goes and kills that Jawa. But because like he's supposed to go at some point, he's got to go to the Jawas because he figures out that the armor has been sold, and then at some point from there, he doesn't know where it is till he sees, what's the dude's name in the small town wearing it, and then Mando and him fighting the dragon. Right?
Cobb Vanth, was that guy?
Cobb Vanth, yeah.
Cobb Vanth. And will he approach them with honor, or will he just murder them all from the sky?
Oh my God, he better start like, I want, like, he's gotta be like, my name is Boba Fett. Like, give me my armor back. Like, I really want to see him destroy something already, man.
I also think part of it is like, okay, Mandalorian, he wears his helmet all the time. It makes it very easy to put a stunt actor in there and just be like, oh yeah, no, it's Pedro. Don't worry, it's a stunt actor.
Yeah,
I'm fine with this.
But yeah, that's fine. But what I'm saying is like Tamira Morrison is about 60 years old, and he has his helmet off a lot in this, which means it is very hard to replace him with someone else.
I mean,
and as
put it on when you're in a battle sequence.
Yeah, but they're not for some reason, and as a result, you're getting old man fighting moves, which is fine. But just you got to recognize, like, 60-year-old man fighting. He's not going to be as nimble as a dude that's half his age, or even 40 years old.
Okay, but just think about the scene in season 2 where he meets Bo-Katan and I can't remember the other Mando's name, the female Mando that's with her, and he's like, tread lightly, little one, and then they get into a fight in the bar where he like does a crazy barrel roll and he comes up with this flamethrower, and I'm just like, he's fighting. I haven't seen a single sequence like that in this season, and don't give it to me all in episode 7, man. Start giving me some cool stuff now. Win me over with the last 2 episodes is my point. Like, make me want to watch Boba Fett season 2 if it happens. I mean, I'm going to watch it because I like Fett. But make me really want to sit there and watch it, right? Like, we all waited for Mando season 2, and we're all patiently waiting for season 3. So, like, when we got a little taste of him in this, we were all like, yeah! Like, people lost their minds when he walked through the meat factory plastic curtains. I don't know what the hell they're called. But, like, I want, I don't know. I want more, and I don't know who to talk to about this. Like, come on, get with the program. Like, do I have to shake the shit out of Robert Rodriguez? Is that what I got to do? Like, get it together, man. But if I know Filoni, he's going to give us some monster stuff at the end. It's just a weird buildup, I guess, is the point of this whole thing that we're talking about. Yeah. I don't know. I don't have any other thoughts other than hopefully this week's episode is baller.
Yeah. I mean, I'd like to see it go out on a strong note. So far, the lead up for it, I just have not cared so much about the stakes.
I feel like there's like a reason for it. They're just not giving it to us yet. So
yeah, so far, I mean, wholesale, I'm just kind of disappointed because I was looking forward to this so much. I wanted to see Boba Fett do some really cool shit, and it just hasn't happened.
Nelson and Joe, if you got anything to say, feel free to drop some comments, man. I know you guys have been chatting it up in here with us.
Another thing that so right after Mandalorian, that I think that's it's the contrast between how good the Mandalorian was and how maybe not so great Boba Fett has been. But the music is another thing. At any given time, I can recall the theme song of the Mandalorian because it's awesome. But when I try to think of the theme song to Boba Fett, I'm like,
I don't know what it sounds. I got nothing.
Well, I mean, I have eventually because I've been really focusing on it, trying to. It's like da 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 da, boom 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 da 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 da. It's just
that's pretty much it.
Yeah, exactly.
I still don't know what it sounds like. Nelson said Boba Fett's continuing story isn't interesting in relation to the sum of our knowledge of where the universe is going. Yeah, that's a good point too, right? Like, there's bigger things. Well, I think they're trying to not focus on the bigger things like the New Republic and stuff yet. They're trying to focus on just tiny things on one location. It's weird that it's also in one location, I think, is the other thing. That's a good point. That's getting on my nerves a little bit, right?
It's all in Tatooine.
It's all on Tatooine.
I'm so tired of Tatooine.
Yeah. Like, show me another. So it's kind of refreshing to see Din on the Pathring, whatever you want to call it, space station, right?
Yeah.
Which it's still weird to me that it works the way it works. Welcome to Star Wars. But like, I want to see him go off planet, I guess. And that's probably what's going to happen at the end, I guess. I feel like at some point he's going to be like, yeah, I'm not cut out for this. Let's go. And maybe he'll go back to Mandalore. He's not really.
I wonder.
He's not 100% Mandalorian, right? He's Mandalorian because they gave him the title.
Yeah, he's not a Mandalorian. He just wears the armor. It's a pretty big. Yeah. He could get more involved with
well, he says he's Mandalorian because they gave him, because whoever took him and his dad in gave him the title of being a Mandalorian, right?
I thought it was that
he shows you that in the.
I thought that his dad was a Mandalorian, but because like he's a clone and
right.
didn't really grow up in that life, like he doesn't identify as it.
Correct. Yeah, nostalgia.
Not sure.
I don't know. Like, we'll see. I guess we'll see how it goes. We can wrap this up unless you guys got something epic to say other than us. No. We've been ripping into Star Wars itself for the last 30 minutes, I think. But I think at the end of the day, we all still love Star Wars. I think that's the point, right? Like they continue to. Okay. Yeah, I think Nelson said, "I'm Boba Fett. I'm a bounty hunter." Right, but he doesn't want to be a bounty hunter. Is the point. But my point was that I was going to say was at the end of the day, I think we all know that we're going to get some garbage mixed in with a lot of cool stuff that we like, and that's what's happening here. We're getting like you're getting a little bit of that Grogu storyline. You're getting a little bit of that Dark Saber. You're getting a little bit of Fett, but not really the Fett we want. But maybe, I guess if we accept what Carey, like what you're saying, like who just said he's older, Andrew. Like if you accept the fact that he's a little older and he's a little like, hey man, this is the speed I'm coming in at. You could be like, okay. But again, the events of Mandalorian season 2 were not that long ago. They were literally like a couple months back.
So I was going to say, it's also down to like, I guess, whoever the fight choreographer is for this. And it's kind of like what you said with like the season 2 of Mandalorian. You can shoot around that kind of limitation and make it still a dynamic thing.
Right.
Like anyone that's
too. Like they could do a lot, especially when he was kind of injured, and his skin was all mocked up. You can put a mask on a stunt guy, that'll make him look.
Yeah, you could do a lot with that. Yeah,
motion. That's how that's worked for decades and decades. So it's a problem they could work around. It just seems like they're trying not to. Like they're trying to create a plot that is less action focused, which is a weird choice, and that's why it comes off a little disjointed and all over the place to us.
Yeah, we don't.
Action focused characters in the Star Wars universe, and they're like, what'd be cool? Let's make it super boring instead. Like,
it's like a late stage Steven Seagal movie where you go in expecting an action movie and it's just him sitting in a restaurant.
Well, it's like it's like watching him he's like just tending to a garden the whole time. You're just like, oh, which if they showed us a little bit of him saying, I want to relax with the rest of my life as like one episode in Mandalorian, you would have been like, okay, I guess that's what he's decided to do. But they're trying to jam 7 episodes of this currently down our throats, and we're like, it's a lot. So, and we'll see. I guess. What do you say? Boba knew about the codes and the armor that tied Jango to the man. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Like he shows you the codex that says, "Hey, I am a Mandalorian."
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
that's what I was referring to. So he is Mandalorian by title, not by like birthright, essentially. Because he is a clone. It would be cool if a bunch of clones showed up and they all just
we're thinking the same thing.
Hey, what's up, man?
That would be rad.
But I guess we'll see. All right, well, I'm gonna wrap this up. I guess we'll do another call after the next 2 episodes because there's 2 more left. And then if you guys are interested in being back on, I'll just get a big group together and we can. Hopefully, we're not trash talking it. Hopefully, we're like, that was amazing.
Now we understand everything.
Yeah, that's too far.
I love investment.
I just want to see some cool shit. That's all I'm asking for. But I also get what they're trying to do. Maybe they're I had a random thought that maybe they're trying to not give us so much action because, like, we got an Obi-Wan series coming out, right? And I'm sure it'll.
Oh, that's on Tatooine again too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it might go to, like, if they've got Ewan McGregor again, right? So it could go off planet too, right? It doesn't 100% have to be.
Yeah, that series doesn't have to be on Tatooine. It just has to, like, start there and end there. Like, it doesn't have to be focused about it. It will be, and you're going to see all kinds.
Yeah, I was going to say it's going to stay on Tatooine. If for some reason they already have those scenes rendered and stuff in Unreal, they're like, why do we need to do a different thing besides the planet? We have all the sets.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully they show some cool adventure type stuff that he goes on, because he's just gonna end up growing old on Tatooine and slower. Because
sadly, I think for a lot of the Star Wars shows right now, I'm more interested in seeing how much of the volume gets used.
Sure.
than I am like the actual story at least for me.
I mean, they're using it on all these new shows. Look, why wouldn't you use it? The technology's there and it's brilliant.
There's a lot of scenes that because I know the size of it, so I'm wondering, like, okay, how are you shooting this then? Like, there were certain scenes in Mandalorian 2 that I was like, I don't know how you're doing this. And there's some scenes in this one in Boba Fett, like especially when he was out with the Tuskens, I was like, okay, where is the line on this? Like, what are you?
Right. Well, there was a cool.
You like the digital backdrop versus like just people in a set.
I mean, I was watching a YouTube video on the volume and how, like, I thought they filmed like in that set and then put the images in later, but they do all the stuff's there in real time. Yeah, so the actors can definitely act into what appears to be
it's so
scene.
They can act, and then also things like, say, reflections. Those are just captured in camera versus having someone rotoscope the green screen out.
I think that's cool.
Like, the helmet. Yeah.
And Joe had a good point. Obi-Wan and Vader are definitely fighting again in that series because they definitely bought Christensen back as well.
Hayden,
or Christian.
What's
his name? Hayden Christensen.
Hayden Christensen.
Damn you, Carey, for making me correct what I said correctly.
Sorry.
Threw me off. So we're probably gonna get a Vader. I don't know. Obviously, Vader doesn't defeat him because they meet again in New Hope. So, all right, I'm gonna wrap this up unless anyone's got anything else to say because we're a little over time.
No.
Cool. Well, thanks for being on, guys. I know it's been a minute for both of you guys, actually. Thanks to everyone who's been watching. Carey and Joe and Nelson. Thanks for your robust commentary. They've just been going back and forth in the chat, which is kind of funny. But it's all like useful information, which is great. So, all right, hang on. I'm gonna take us offline. Give me 1 second. Hang on. Who's our next guest?
Tatiana Dykes, right?
That's right. She'll be on Sunday.
Oh, nice. And Tom Babby, right? Yeah, he's coming back every episode and not showing up. Like, he's on advertising him and never there.
He's on a small ban. No, it's fine. It's fine. He's a busy man. He forgot. It's all. It's cool. If I still had 2 more guests. If all 3 of you guys forgot, then I'd be like scorched earth. Time to kill them like the Sarlacc.